In 1985, police found 36-year-old Debbie Wolfe floating in a pond and quickly closed her case as a tragic accidental drowning. But her friends discovered terrifying evidence that the authorities completely ignored. The official police timeline was simple. Debbie slipped into the water alone with absolutely no foul play. But when her friends hired a private investigator, the map revealed a massive red flag. Just hours before vanishing, Debbie was seen in a heated argument with her ex-boyfriend. Then came the medical findings. Her body had unexplained bruises that were entirely inconsistent with a simple drowning. And the most chilling piece of evidence on the map? Eyewitnesses saw an unidentified man carrying a heavy object toward that exact pond on the night she disappeared. Despite this overwhelming proof of murder, police refused to look at the new evidence. They never seriously questioned the ex-boyfriend and refused to reopen the case. Because the authorities stubbornly kept it closed as an accidental drowning, Debbie Wolfe's killer has walked free for over 30 years.
Alcatraz was America's supposedly inescapable fortress, until 3 inmates completely vanished without a trace, using nothing but soap, stolen raincoats, and real human hair. Meet Frank Morris. He possessed a genius-level IQ and had already broken out of multiple maximum security prisons. Authorities thought this island would finally hold him. They were dead wrong. For months, Morris and the Anglin brothers executed an agonizing plan. They secretly chipped away at their concrete cell walls, using nothing more than stolen cafeteria spoons. To pull off the ultimate deception, they crafted dummy heads from soap and toilet paper, gluing on real hair stolen from the prison barbershop. From outside the bars, the night guards suspected absolutely nothing. The trio squeezed through a ventilation shaft and climbed to the roof. They inflated a makeshift raft built from 50 stolen raincoats and disappeared into the freezing waters of the San Francisco Bay. The FBI searched for decades, eventually presuming the men had drowned. But in 2013, the San Francisco police received a shocking letter. It claimed to be from John Anglin himself, stating that all 3 men survived and lived normal lives. DNA tests on the stamp were completely inconclusive, meaning to this day, nobody knows if Frank Morris drowned in that bay or successfully vanished into American society.
For 30 years, a beloved Boy Scout leader and church president was the absolute perfect suburban neighbor. So how did this friendly family man hide 10 brutal murders right under his community's nose? Behind closed doors, he was a monster. He would meticulously bind, torture, and kill his victims, giving himself the terrifying nickname BTK. After terrorizing Kansas and sending horrifying letters to the police, the killer just stopped. For 25 years, he completely vanished. Detectives assumed the trail was cold and the killer was dead. But Dennis Rader wasn't dead. He was hiding in plain sight. He used his flawless reputation and active church life as the ultimate impenetrable camouflage. That camouflage held until 2004, when his massive ego drove him to make a fatal mistake. Desperate for attention, he broke a quarter-century of silence and mailed a floppy disk to investigators. He thought he was untraceable, but hidden digital metadata linked the disk directly to his church's computer. The community was utterly devastated when the trusted family man they loved was finally unmasked. In the end, he traded his pristine suburban life for a 175-year prison sentence. She faked her own death so perfectly that she actually attended her funeral to watch her children cry. And as they wept over her closed casket, she felt absolutely nothing. Benny Wendt was drowning in massive debt in Ohio. Facing financial ruin, she decided the only way out was to erase her existence entirely. First, she stole a recently deceased woman's identity. Then, she forged her own death certificates to trigger a life insurance payout. To sell the illusion, she staged a fake closed casket funeral. Her real children, who she abandoned years earlier, were told their mother was dead. They grieved and they slowly moved on. Meanwhile, Benny lived comfortably in another state for a full decade. She pulled off the perfect crime, until one mundane error. She carelessly applied for a government benefit using her original Social Security number. The system flagged it immediately. Investigators tracked her down, expecting a dramatic confrontation. Instead, Benny was chillingly calm, showing zero remorse. She was convicted of fraud and identity theft. But the real tragedy wasn't the stolen insurance money. It was the permanent psychological damage inflicted onto children she forced to mourn her. He was a beloved family doctor,
trusted with people's lives. He was also the deadliest serial killer in recorded history. For over 20 years, Dr. Harold Shipman ran a medical practice in Manchester, England. Parents brought them their kids. The entire community loved him. Nobody suspected a thing. Until one day, a fellow doctor noticed an impossible pattern. An unusually high number of Shipman's patients were dying, and they were all found the exact same way, sitting peacefully in their chairs, fully dressed. She reported her concerns, but authorities initially brushed it off. Shipman's reputation was an impenetrable shield. The town simply loved him too much to investigate. But when detectives finally looked closer, the facade shattered. Shipman was systematically injecting his patients with lethal doses of morphine. He would kill them calmly, then sit at his desk and completely falsify their medical records. The official inquiry uncovered a staggering reality. He had murdered at least 250 of his own patients over a 23-year span. In 2004, Shipman hanged himself in his prison cell. By taking his own life before explaining his actions, the doctor who demanded absolute trust ensured his victims' families would never understand why he betrayed them.
In 2003, a man robbed a Pennsylvania bank using nothing but a handwritten note and a bulky, locked metal collar strapped around his neck. He calmly walked out with over $8,000. But he didn't get far before police surrounded him. Sitting on the pavement, Wells seemed completely terrified. He told the cops the collar was a live bomb. He claimed strangers had forced it onto him, making him commit the robbery against his will. Unsure what to believe, police kept their distance and desperately called the bomb squad. But as they waited in a tense standoff, the device suddenly beeped 3 times and exploded right there on the side of the road. Wells died instantly. To the world, he looked like the tragic, innocent victim of a twisted game. But when investigators dug into the case, they uncovered a shocking truth. Wells was never a random hostage. He was actually one of the criminal masterminds who helped plan the heist. The original plan was for him to wear a fake bomb to easily scare the teller, but his own co-conspirators decided to double-cross him. They locked a real explosive to his neck instead, ensuring their willing partner became the tragic victim of his own heist. In the Golan Heights, a 3-year-old boy walked up to authorities and successfully solved a brutal murder case. But how do you solve a murder when the victim was you? As soon as he could talk, the toddler began describing a previous life. He told his parents he had been murdered with an axe. He even knew the exact name of the man who killed him. His family belonged to the Druze community, which strongly believes in reincarnation, so they took his claims seriously and brought him to the village he described. The boy confidently led investigators through dusty streets he had never seen before. He marched straight up to a specific house, pointed at the dirt, and said, "The body is here." When investigators dug up that exact spot, they uncovered a human skeleton. But the toddler wasn't finished. He spotted a specific man standing in the crowd and said, "You killed me." The man turned completely pale, but he denied everything. So the child led authorities to a second hidden location. Buried deep in the ground, they found the exact murder weapon, an axe. Faced with an unmarked grave and the hidden weapon, the killer's mind broke. He immediately confessed to the crime, closing the only documented case in history where a reincarnated toddler caught his own killer.
Imagine being sentenced to die based on a single bullet match, only to find out the prosecutor knew the evidence was completely fabricated. In 1985, Anthony Ray Hinton was trapped by an underfunded lawyer and a fake ballistics test claiming the crime scene bullets matched his mother's gun. For the next 3 decades, Anthony sat in a concrete Alabama prison cell. He watched 54 fellow inmates take their final walk to the execution chamber. But instead of letting the anger break his spirit, Anthony started a book club right there on death row. He taught condemned men to read, sharing worn paperbacks through the steel bars. In 2015, 3 top international experts re-examined that original bullet. They proved the match to his mother's gun was a complete lie. The Supreme Court unanimously overturned his conviction. Anthony finally walked into the sunlight as a free 58-year-old man. But his mother had already passed away, waiting for a homecoming she never saw. When asked if he hated the people who stole his life, he refused to give them the satisfaction. He said, "They already stole 30 years. I won't let them steal another second."
For decades, the Golden State Killer left his DNA at over 100 crime scenes, but police remained completely blind to his identity until a total stranger took a home genealogy test.
In 2017, investigators abandoned traditional criminal databases and uploaded his genetic profile to a public family history website. The system didn't find the killer directly. Instead, it flagged a partial match to his distant relatives. Investigators meticulously reverse-engineered this connection, building a massive family tree backward to find a common ancestor. Then they traced the branches down through the generations, crossing off anyone who didn't fit the killer's profile. After months of painstaking elimination, the family tree narrowed down to one highly specific suspect, a retired police officer. Because of his law enforcement background, he knew how to hide, so police secretly collected his DNA from his household garbage. It was a perfect match. When officers swarmed his driveway, the old man whispered his confession. The 40-year hunt for America's most elusive serial criminal finally ended, not because of a mistake, but because of his family's DNA.
He was executed by the state. His heart stopped. He was declared dead. And then he woke up. In 1946, 17-year-old Willie Francis was strapped into Louisiana's electric chair, but the prison guard setting it up was intoxicated. He didn't supply enough voltage to kill him. Electricity surged through Willie's body. He convulsed and screamed to the witnesses, "I am not dead. Take this thing off me." He was unbuckled and sent right back to his prison cell, alive. His lawyers immediately appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. They argued that putting a teenager through the trauma of a second execution was the literal definition of cruel and unusual punishment. But in a narrow 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court disagreed. They established a terrifying legal precedent. Failing to kill an inmate by accident does not legally prevent the state from trying again. So, exactly 1 year after miraculously surviving the electric chair, 18-year-old Willie Francis was strapped back into the exact same device. And this time, the state's execution succeeded.